Not spell. Just awful. Just just it's spell.
Hello, are you sharing?
And, well, I'm trying.
Okay, sorry.
I think I think the old iPad might be on the last legs. It's taking a an grammar. It's taking an inordinate amount of time
Yeah.
to share things. I think the old girl might
Pushing
be.
it beyond you're pushing it beyond its limits.
I kind of changed the laws of physics. Of course, this is in a completely different order.
I was gonna say she's not the Excelsior.
But now I'm kind of stuck.
Let's see. We have no guests for today, right?
We do not.
Okay.
It's just us. And
And Randall.
I need to get this figured out.
Okay. I'm gonna mute.
Nina might took us this right now. Because this is in a completely different order. No, it's not. Okay. So I made it to. What did I make it to? I don't know, but we're gonna have to do it through here now. Let's see if it goes. Let's see. I got stopped. Should have gone to that one. I got stopped during my sharing last night. I had to stop for about an hour. That hasn't happened quite a while. Still going. Somewhere around. So now I know where we got stopped, roughly. Okay. 601. Sales. Who can tell me? That's just not what I tapped on. Trying to monitor. Okay, let's see how we do because I think we're struggling. I think the old really do. I think the iPad might be at the end of her rope. I think she might be at the end of her rope. Okay. Then again, it's been like a 15-year rope.
I think you can throw it now if you want to. It's up to you.
That's a possibility. I'm just saying. The iPad will fly like a lot better than the iMac because the iMac's pretty heavy. All righty. What do you say we do this thing? Yeah. 3, 2.5. Okay, here we go.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know. Up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? To which we must be true. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you'll cast your vote for Kennedy and the change that's over too. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Welcome, 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 welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 21st of April, 2024. Winter has returned to the Lehigh Valley, and I am none too happy about it. Let me be very clear. I am not happy. It is chilly outside, and especially after having a few days where we have been able to, at a minimum, t-shirt, possibly even t-shirt and shorts. There's always that one person who wears shorts like all year round, no matter how cold it gets. I know when I used to work at the Macy's parade, Thanksgiving Day parade, there would always be like one like counterterrorism cop or FDNY like boss or something like that who would be wearing shorts even when it was like 10 below. And I worked that parade in every kind of weather you can think of, and there's always somebody wearing shorts, and it would just make me feel all the more cold. Well, it is chilly and cloudy here today. It was sunny earlier today, and it got okay. It got tolerable. Still needed a jacket, but now it's just chilly, and it's just bleh. And it's actually supposed to get into the 30s tonight and tomorrow night. But hey, that's just kind of the nature of spring, right? It gets kind of bounces all over the place. Certainly the windy part of spring, which we were always, as kids, you in school, you always kind of had those very colorful not animated, animated is not the right word, very colorful calendars, and March was always the windy month with the kite in it, and April was the rainy month. Well, I mean, it's been somewhat rainy here this April, but it's been much more like March, I think, than it has a traditional April. It does seem to me that with climate change, with global climate change, that spring, the chilly bits of spring seem to go deeper into the calendar. The warmer parts of summer seems to go deeper into fall, but a little chilly here today, but it doesn't matter. We're still here with you. Let me fix my own headset since I never put it properly on my head. Hopefully you didn't get to hear all that rustling about. I tend to wear them behind my neck when I'm preparing, because I don't want to ruin the coif. The coif is very important. Not really. I cut it myself. It's not that important. Clearly, it's not that important because I refuse to put any money into it. But anyway, let's get back to the business at hand. This is the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 21st of April, 2024. George is already here with us here right from the outset, and that's an awesome thing. It is always a better show when George is here. I always tend to feel, I just feel so much more comfortable when he's here because he's here to correct me. He's here to send me links. He always says something very funny and snarky, usually in the private chat that we have together. And by the way, that private chat that him and I have, or that any of the show guests that we have through the Zoom part, is never any like real cool, like super important content that you're missing. It's usually just stuff like, hey, I have to go in a few minutes, or hey, the dog is barking, I need to take a break, or that kind of stuff. The kids are waiting for me upstairs for dinner, that kind of thing with the guests. So it's not like you miss anything in that. But the one thing I think you probably do miss that I think is probably fair is George will always say something funny and snarky in the middle of that. And he sends me sausage links as well, which kind of, the old saying about how the sausage is made. He tends to send me those as well. But that said, wherever you are on Facebook, thank you for allowing us to be part of your Facebook feed, if you will, to individuals, to groups, both large and small, local, regional, national, and global. and whatever the topic of your group might be, because we happen to share the program now into political committee groups. We share them into activist groups. We share them into regional, make our area a better area kind of groups. And we've actually added in the last, George will correct me, I want to say probably in the last 2 months or so, probably about 24 internet radio groups, and they have been exceptionally welcoming to us, which we are very, very grateful for. I shouldn't say I stopped. I got stopped by Facebook. Surprise, surprise, surprise. I got stopped by Facebook in the midst of my sharing about according to them 110 locations in. I don't think I made it that far, to be perfectly honest with you, but it says that I made it that far. So we share to currently about 110 places, unless some of you did that, in which case we're beyond grateful. So more places to share after the 7 o'clock hour, after my 1 hour ban, which they seem to be lifts up. But wherever you are on Facebook, and as I've said to you before, I know that whenever we become members, if you will, of Facebook, it tells you right in the agreement they own everything. They own everything that you put up there. They can use it for data, they can sell it, they can do all sorts of things with it. But I still believe that it's your corner, it's your little space, it's your content. To me, I know they own it, and I know they take it and they sell it. It's the world's greatest data collection idea ever. And whatever you might think of Mr. Zuckerberg, his business acumen, or his whatever you might think, is that he, in the relative infancy of the internet, figured out a way to have you voluntarily sign over yourself as a data collection agent, and for him to bundle that and sell it for insane amounts of money. He, of course, now is easily one of the 10 richest people on the planet, and we're all part of it, and we're all feeding it. But it's your part of Facebook, in my humble opinion. So for you all to allow us to be there does mean a great to me. I appreciate it very, very much. We couldn't do it without you. So we're 110 shares in. I think I have another 20 or 30 to do after the what has become the 1 hour ban is lifted. After the 7 o'clock hour, we'll get it out to the rest of the places. You can share the program as well. I honestly have never stopped anybody from sharing this. Once you get onto Facebook, it's kind of out there. If there's anywhere that you wish to share the program, whether you're watching us live currently right now at 6:13 p.m. Eastern, or you're watching the recorded version, we encourage you, we invite you, we ask you to share the program to groups that maybe you are a part of that we are not, to individuals that that we don't, to share it to all the appropriate places, and even some of the ones that aren't, especially to the conservative groups. That's fun when my program ends up on the conservative pages, and it does. So thank you all for that. You can watch us live. If you are in your groups and watching right now, stay there and enjoy. I will do my very, very best to keep up with your questions and comments that are coming in from the 110 different places that we've been able to share the show. If you want to reach us directly, much quicker and more directly, please come to my personal Facebook. My name's right on the screen, and tap on the show. It will expand, fill your screen. The comments section will pop up. We will take your comments, your questions. You can yell at me, agree, disagree, call me names, whatever comes to your brain. You can do that, and we will talk about it, because I will have to say that I don't want to call it a new format so much. We really haven't changed the program. We just stopped begging people to be on it. So many people have been invited, and then they tell me that they're super, super interested in being here, and we might even sometimes work out a date and then they just sort of disappear. I think the kids call it ghosting, if you will, the kids, if you will. I think they call it ghosting, and then they ghost us. And you know what? Nobody is obligated to appear here. I just wish they would when they tell me they're going to. But that said, so since we've kind of adopted this more relaxed policy toward getting guests, and George would tell you that I used to get very, 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 very stressed out when I did not have guests. Right now, at this point, it doesn't bother me in the least anymore. I love when we have guests. They add tremendous amount to the program. But if we don't, we don't. Then it's up to you and I, all of you and us here, to have a conversation. So share the program out, let them see it. Please feel free to do that. We encourage you to do it. We appreciate when you do it. Come on over to our home group Facebook page. Let me see your comments and questions. With no guests here, you can help direct and propel the program forward, and it becomes more of a discussion than a lecture. I am not here to lecture you. I'm not smarter or better than any of you or anyone else that's out there. I might have more experience in certain areas of life than you might have, but I'm not smarter or better than any of you. So let's talk to each other. Let's talk with each other. Let's have a discussion. Come on in to the Facebook feed, right at my personal Facebook. My name's right there. My name is also up in the square that George has put on the screen. Find me, tap on the program, fill the screen. You'll see the comments, enter your comments and questions there and be part of the program. Hot101.net is the internet radio station, one of the very, very first. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on Earth, under or above Earth, you can listen to hot101.net 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every kind of holiday, every time, all around the globe. It is literally what I said. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen, period. You can go to the main web page, and the address is our name, hot101.net. You don't want to go to the website. Well, let me back up. The beautiful thing about the website is you type in hot101.net, it populates, and you're listening, period. You're listening straight away. No work, no credit card, no bank account number, no firstborn, no blood sample, no retina scan. George never compliments me for my retina scan reference that I make here every week. You don't need to do any of that. You type in www.hot101.net and you're listening, period. It's that quick. If you don't want to use the main website, you don't have to. We have apps. They are free and they work the very same way. Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play for Android devices, and the TuneIn radio app, which works on every type of device. Motorola phones, LG phones, it works on everything. You can go with the TuneIn app, you go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and boom, you're listening. The Apple apps and Android apps, you download the apps for free, you open it, and you're listening. Again, no registration, no credit card, no firstborn, no fingerprint, no retina scan, no blood sample. Don't have to sign over your firstborn unless they're driving you crazy that day and you want to sign them over. We're kidding. I am absolutely kidding. But completely unnecessary. You simply open it and you're listening. It really is that simple. And we're also part of the TCP Media Group, a large and important and diverse and truthful and excellent conversation and news source and local news source right out of Lancaster, PA. You should be checking them out as well. That covers it for now. So I talked to you a little bit about winter, and of course, winter has returned. But the world of politics and the world of international politics and continues to be quite white hot, if not red hot, here at home. You saw probably the header for the program today. Oh, there goes Daisy. Can you hear her? I sure as heck can. Well, she's not happy right now. Something's going on. So Daisy is crate trained. and she has been since we adopted her. So she has a very large crate downstairs. She's not a super huge dog, but we got her like a really oversized crate, so she has plenty of space. Normally, when we go to bed, she's in and we zip it up. If we have to leave the house for extended period of extended periods of time, grammar, we will zip her up. When I came up today to do the program and here to be here with you, I left her out. Now, nothing bad has ever happened, but she does tend to sit at the window and just kind of stare outside and get herself quite exercised about anything that might be going on. Someone walks by, she sees another type of, one of God's creatures, chipmunks, squirrels, birds. She barks at them. If anybody else is walking their dog, she barks at them. If the neighbor's being a bit too turning on too many lights in their house across, she barks at them. So something has happened outside that has gotten her quite exercised, but she has calmed down just as quick. So whatever it was, it didn't last too long, and that's fine. She can only be in that crate for so long. If I was in her position, I'd be going nuts in there if I was in there for too long too. So, and I'm right up here and George is here. So, I mean, if something really went crazy downstairs, I could always, play the theme song again or whatever it might be, and then take care of her and come back. But not to, bore you with details about my family and my home life, but it is funny. I knew you could hear her because I sure as heck could hear her. So that barking should have gotten through to you. So Daisy the dog is downstairs. It's probably standing at the window. Garden the home front. Hey, what's wrong with that? She's garden her home. I guess I can't really blame her for that. But anyway, let's get into the show here a little bit. It is 6:22, and we're thrilled to have you with us. George and I will take you as far as we can, as long as we have things to talk about, and as long as I can think of words that will pour out of the front of my face. We will take you. The Villain's View, by the way, returns. They are live tonight from 9 p.m. here on That Other Side of Information on Facebook and hot101.net, coming to you live right after us whenever we finish, because they start doing the pre-show as early as around 8:30, 8:40, 8:45, and then the main actual live go after it show begins at 9. They follow us live, so stay right here. When we finish, we hand it right off to the Villain's View. And I can say, just as a bit of a teaser with very, very few details, an exciting new venture has come our way. It should be coming to you this summer between us and the Villain's View. Please keep an eye out for it. More details to come. I'm not going to drown you in details yet because it is a work in progress and there's nothing wrong with that either. But this summer, between our team here at the Kennedy Effect and the Villain's View, a whole new, really bright future that we look forward to bringing you coming this summer. Stay tuned for it. Details will continue to come out, and we hope that you'll stick around and learn about what we're doing. One of the big topics I want to start the program with today is, you may recall that several months ago, and it's kind of where this new guest policy came from, that we had guests, well, at least one guest, but I believe some of her staff was supposed to come as well. So we had guests booked on the program, and they were completely scheduled to join us. And on a Sunday in, I want to say it was February. I think it was February. George will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was February. And then the day of show, they called to cancel to tell me that they could not be associated with anything that had the Kennedy name on it. because the Kennedy name had become toxic and had become too controversial. Due to the independent presidential campaign of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they didn't want to be associated with anything called the Kennedy effect or anything that had Kennedy touching it. Well, I suppose, at least in part, that is a reaction to, well, no, I'm saying that backward. I guess I'm not saying it. I guess I'm saying it wrong, and I'm trying to I guess somewhat in reaction to RFK Jr.'s campaign, even though the entirety of the Kennedy family, to the best of my knowledge, I don't know a single member of the family, and I mean the main branch of the family that we all know, the American Camelot political dynasty that we're all aware of. I'm not part of that. We are very distantly related. We are related to some extent, but it is quite distant. I've never sat here to try to tell you that I was some long lost, child of the assassinated president or assassinated senator or Ted Kennedy for that matter, or some clone or some sort of amalgamation grown in a petri dish. I've never been here to tell you any of that because it's completely untrue. While we are related, it is distant. But the main branch of the family that we have all been surrounded by in political life in this country since Prohibition, really, in the 1920s, since the Great Depression, the Republican Great Depression. Has denounced his campaign, and they had to so the main branch of the family, I don't know how else to say it, I guess, other than the main branch of the family, has denounced this campaign from the beginning. And I've told you a bit about Mr. Kennedy's campaign, that actually from a social issues point of view and an economic point of view, his platform, if you will, has been very Kennedy, really. That wealth inequality is beyond control and needs to be reined in, but the principles of the New Deal need to be reinstituted, that people should have health care as a right, should have education as a right, they should have a clean environment as a right, that too few corporations control way too much of American life. It's a very Kennedy-esque president and senator Kennedy-esque platform. It is the well, it's the vaccine stuff. Let me just be plain. It's the vaccine stuff that has led the family to denounce his campaign, and not just come out against it, but really properly denounce it. And as we continue to see this campaign unfurl, if you will, or details of it become public, the woman that Mr. Kennedy Jr. has named as his running mate is a very, 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 very wealthy lawyer from California, I believe, who's a major donor to his campaign. But she's also been a major donor to Republican candidates. Some of Mr. Kennedy's largest donors are Trump donors. And it is yet another reason why the family has come out against his campaign. It is at best a spoilers campaign. It is not, in my estimation, a serious campaign. It is spoilers at best. At best, a spoilers campaign. So when you see donors, people bankrolling his campaign, and by the way, for an independent third party, very non-structured sort of campaign, he's got a decent amount of cash coming in. And if you just look at the public record, because while campaign finance in this country is a shambles, like a real absolute shambles, and it is dirty, it is dark, it is too far in the shadows. There are enough donors that are on public record in the campaign finance reports that the Kennedy Jr. campaign is required to file, same as as President Biden, same as ex-President Trump. And every candidate across the country, and every candidate for the House, every candidate for Senate, every candidate for everything must file campaign finance reports. And they can go to your county or to your state or to the Federal Elections Commission, depending on the office that you're running for. And what little has been known of Mr. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign has told us that the same people that bankroll Trump are bankrolling him, because they have made the financial bet that the longer he can stay in this race, and if he can stay in through the actual election day itself, and whether he gets on the ballot in 10, 20, 30 states or all 50, that it is President Biden that he will hurt more than Trump. So if they can keep him in, if they can keep him involved and keep him in this race, that it will hurt Mr. Biden. And that is the financial bet that they're making. So I am bringing all of this up because because earlier this week, and I will try to find the article for you because I posted it at That Other Side of Information, our Facebook group. Let me see if I can find it for you very quickly. I should have had it up. I think I posted it possibly yesterday. Oh, I want to get to that article too, actually. Wow, I did not. When the heck did I put this thing? Okay, here we go. I put it up Friday. So this is an article from the Canadian Broadcasting Company, CBC.ca. I've told you on the program way too many times, way too many times, that if you have that Trump-loving family member, that conspiracy theory-loving family member, or the family member that you simply cannot talk to because all the domestic media is biased and it's all left-wing media, yada, yada, yada. By the way, none of which is true. There are left-wing media sources in this country, but the media, if you took the entire media landscape and just took the total number of media outlets and really looked at where their biases lay, you will find there are much more to the right than they are center or left. MSNBC always takes a lot of kicks to the face about being the quote unquote liberal network. And certainly from 8 p.m. on, pretty much are. But I would also say, take a look at the hosts. Joe Scarborough's a Republican. No idea what Ana Cabrera is, and good for her. Jose Diaz-Balart tends to lean toward the left a bit, but is a competent, very respected news person. Andrea Mitchell is married to Alan Greenspan, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve, who brought us this, who helped institute this, overactive manipulation of interest rates to suppress wages and to fight unionization in this country. So that could tell you where she lies. Katie Tur seems to be straight down the middle. Nicole Wallace is a Republican. Michael Steele is a Republican. I mean, there's a lot of conservative voices on MSNBC. You might consider MSNBC to be tilted one way or the other, but one thing you can tell, and certainly there's a hell of a lot of opinion that flows from them, but one thing you can be 100% sure of is at least they're not lying to you. You may not agree with Joy Reid or Chris Hayes or Rachel Maddow or Alex Wagner or Lawrence O'Donnell, but at least they're not lying to you the way Fox is. And remember, Fox admitted that in open court under oath, that they are an entertainment network. They are not a news network, and that lying is part of their entertainment. It's part of their shtick, if you will. Anyway, where am I going with all this? I'm going down a bunch of really weird rabbit holes. I'm not doing well keeping my thoughts organized today. So there's been a lot of pushback against the Kennedy family because of Mr. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign. But here's what we know, that a lot of the donors are the same. Trump donors are Kennedy Jr. donors, not 100% overlap, but a very measurable and sizable portion. And some of the largest Trump donors are the largest Kennedy Jr. donors because they have made an economic bet that Mr. Kennedy can spoil this for President Biden. Trump will be reelected, and they will get massive tax cuts. And when you look at Republican tax cuts, for a billionaire to spend even $100 million in a presidential campaign, if the tax cuts are going to be worth billions, well, that's a hell of a return. That's if a billionaire was to spend $1 million, money that would take most of us 20, 30 years to earn, and that's just the gross, not the net. They could spend $1 million in this presidential campaign. Now, most of them will spend 10, 20 more. They'll spend mega multi-millions. But let's just say $1 million to make the math easier. A billionaire drops $1 million on Trump. He then cuts taxes. It saves them $1 billion. That's 100 to 1 return. If you could buy a stock that you knew you were going to get 101 return on, you'd buy that stock. That's a financial decision that you would make every day of the week. And that's the bet that these folks are making. It's not because they believe in Mr. Kennedy and what he's talking about, because actually they don't. They don't believe in social justice. They don't believe that every human being has worth and value and should be treated equally. They don't believe in unions. They don't believe in higher taxes for rich people, all of which Mr. Kennedy has talked about. It's actually a very progressive traditional Kennedy family platform, if you will, set of priorities, set of principles. But what makes Mr. Kennedy different is these outlandish ideas about vaccines at September 11th and what seems to be an ever increasing, even environmental groups are now denouncing him. And he was one of the premier and most successful environmental lawyers on the planet for taking small individual people in small towns who never could afford a lawyer or defend themselves and taking the largest polluting corporations to court and beating them like a drum. And now even environmental groups have come out against Mr. Kennedy. So exceptionally long-winded. I'm surprised George didn't pop in here and say, you're really off track here, son. and because I'm kind of all over the place, I'm having a flood of thoughts and they're not coming out well. But that said, the family yet again this week did a joint campaign appearance with President Biden to say we do not support RFK Jr.'s campaign. We support the president, and that a vote for RFK Jr. is a wasted throwaway vote. At a minimum, at most, it's a vote for Trump. So for all of the folks who are afraid to come to this program because my family name is on it, wake up. Because the family, yet again, in a very public way, has said, no, this is wrong. And we're not supporting it. Let me read a tiny bit from the article. Article is an Associated Press article, which was reprinted or republished. Published, it's the better word, in on the CBC website, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, cbc.ca. It is an Associated Press article from the 18th, which is Thursday. I think I posted it on Friday. U.S. President Joe Biden scooped up endorsements from at least 15 members of the Kennedy political family during a campaign stop Thursday as he aimed to undermine Donald Trump and marginalize the candidacy of independent Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Kerry Kennedy, a daughter of the former Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, the niece of the president and sister of RFK Jr., delivered endorsements in Philadelphia, calling Biden my hero. Quote, we want to make crystal clear our feeling that the best way forward for America is to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Kerry Kennedy said on Thursday. So for those of you, actually, no, let me read one more paragraph. She never directly mentioned her brother, but insisted, quote, there are only two candidates with any chance of winning the presidency this year, 2024, framing the campaign as a choice between Biden and Trump with no room for a third party contender. So lest any of you out there continue to think that the family is somehow toxic or behind this campaign, wake up. Because here we are yet again. Here we are yet again telling you that we're not part of this and we don't support it. I'm getting comments from other places that I'm trying to pay attention to and I'm not doing well. So I apologize for the dead air there, but some folks from some of the other places that we share across the universe, across the Facebook universe have been kind enough to send some comments and questions. And so I'm trying to accommodate that and be respectful to them. So there you go. I mean, that's it. That's just the bottom line of it. They're not supporting this. So if there's any potential guests out there watching the program, if there's anybody that thinks that any member of the family is supporting this quote unquote third party run, because let's remember, there is no real third fully national to the scope of the Democratic or former Republican parties in this country. They don't exist. There is a Green Party. It is not a 50-state party. There's a Working Families Party here in Pennsylvania. It's not a 50-state party. I believe there is still remnants of the old Reform Party that was trying to be formed in the 90s, that Ross Perot tried to form in the 90s. But it is not a 50 state party. It's not a fully national equal to the Democratic Party or the former functioning Republican Party. There is, in New York State, there's actually 4 fully functional parties: the conservative, the liberal, the Democratic, and the Republican. But they are not national parties. There is no third national party in this country. To be honest with you, I think it's a bit of a shame. I think we might be in this era of hyper bordering on when you bring water up to a boil and you put a lid on it, sometimes the steam will blow the lid off the top. I think the water in America is just below a boil. We haven't quite blown the top off yet, but we don't need too much more heat for that to happen. And in these bordering on violent, hyper partisan times that we are in, more fully functioning, nationally represented political parties forcing us into more of a parliamentary type system might actually be good for the country. And you might think to yourself, well, how would more division be good? Because I think it might provide more people more outlets for their views. Why is the Democratic Party such a huge, not just a big tent party, but a really, really, really huge tent party? Well, because disaffected Republicans have left it. There are more independent-minded people that are part of it. There are conservative Democrats who still believe that people should have a right to these things, but maybe still think that private industry is the way to bring it. There are more liberal and more progressive factions, but we are still all under that tent. I think you can make an argument that more political parties, more fully functioning nationally recognized political parties would give more people a voice and make more people get involved. You could also make the argument, I suppose, to be fair on the other side of it, that it might tear us apart even further, but I tend to doubt it. I think the coalition building that would have to naturally come from having more and more and more parties. Now, I don't think we need like 100 or 200 of them, but boy, if we had even 5 or 6 national parties who could actually get people elected to legislatures, county councils, town councils, to the House, U.S. House of Representatives, maybe the occasional senator, it would force coalition building. That these parties would have to, that if no party had that much of a majority, they would have to come together to build coalition. We don't have a purely parliamentary system in this country. I suspect we never will. But if there were, so there's 435 members of the House of Representatives. If Democrats had 180 of those, Republicans had 140, which is 320. And then there were maybe, I don't know, 40 Greens and 20 Reform and half a dozen, I'm running out of math in my head, working families. Democrats would have to go to some of those other parties to build a majority. And that might not be a bad thing. It might be a bit chaotic in the beginning, but it might not be the worst thing. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not trying to do any of that. He's not trying to build a third party movement. He's not trying to build consensus. He's not trying to build a big tent welcoming people from here and here and here and here politically. I happen to believe he's running largely on ego. And he's running because he has the money to run. And I think he's running because he thought the Kennedy name would be enough. And that his record would not get scrutinized. That his past statements, it's amazing to me how many people seem to forget how the internet works. We've done, it occurred to me actually right before we signed on, George and I, that last week's show, 14th, was the closest on the calendar to our 5th year anniversary, which was actually April 17th. And we completely never mentioned it. And the only reason I'm mentioning it now is because everything I've ever done, and I mean literally everything, George has taken every, except for a couple crazy late night, overtired, I'm going to throw this computer across the room, technical tests. But everything's on our YouTube channel. If you scroll back far enough on that other side of information, everything we've ever done is there. I can't walk away from these statements. Somebody will search back and find them. So I wonder sometimes if Mr. Kennedy simply doesn't understand how the internet works. So that when he has press conferences, when he is doing interviews, when he's in court, when he's giving speeches and says that vaccines are killing kids, they're making kids have autism, 9/11 was an inside job, that no one hears it. Of course we hear it. And of course we can go back and find it. You can't deny it now. Here it is. Here it is on my phone. You said it. It's the same thing for Trump. Oh, I think the Republican Party's gone too far on abortion. You're the one running around the country taking credit for killing Roe versus Wade with your stolen Supreme Court seat in Neil Gorsuch. Brett Kavanaugh, who was $400,000 in debt and then, got nominated, and miraculously, he's got all sorts of money and has no debt. And we still don't know where the money came from. We have a pretty good idea, but we don't know 100%. And then after the Republicans held on to kept President Obama from a Supreme Court appointment for, what was it, well over a year, Amy Coney Barrett is nominated and confirmed in 6 weeks, right before an election. This is a stolen Supreme Court. It's a Supreme Court that the Federalist Society and their donations to Trump paid for, and their donations to Mitch McConnell, for that matter, paid for. So I find it amazing how these people seem to forget how the internet works. It shocks me. It shocks me. Randall mentions what struck me, I think you meant, but then again, my spelling. If you saw me fighting with the spelling of the header of the program today, my typing and my spelling is just horrendous. It's really, really horrendous. I don't know how I allow it to keep happening. What struck me as concerning was the latest poll showing that there are less people convinced to vote in the general election this year than did in 2016 and 2022. I continue to see the same reports, but it is, again, also only mid-April. Well, I guess we're on the latter half of April now. And I do believe there's already been a tremendous amount of ad spending, both generalized and targeted ad spending by both candidates, although much more by President Biden because he has money. Trump is taking the money and paying for lawyers with it, which is why he could only afford a VFW when he visited Pennsylvania most recently. And actually, it was the Lehigh County Republican Party that paid the VFW. It wasn't even the Trump campaign. And remember, Trump is taking a cut of everything you donate to him. If you donate to the Make America Great Again PAC, he takes a chunk of it for his legal bills. If you donate to the Republican National Committee, he takes a chunk of it for his legal bills. Having installed his daughter-in-law as the vice chair of the Republican National Committee, she has made it very plain that the only function of the Republican National Committee is Trump. It's not US House candidates. It's not US Senate candidates. It's not state legislators. It's only Trump. And that if that money needs to be used for lawyers, then so be it. So, hey, sheeple, when you donate to the RNC or Trump, you're simply paying for his lawyers. You're not paying for a campaign. That's why he's pushing the mega donors, the billionaire class, to donate for the campaign expenses because they won't pay for his lawyers. He's counting on you to do that. You who can't afford food and whose Social Security can't cover the rent. He's counting on you for that. You whose taxes he raised in 2017, not cut, but raised. He's counting on you for that. The mega donors are actually covering the campaign expenses. And why are they doing that? Because they want the tax cuts. There is no better example of this than Bill Barr, Trump's attorney general. Who has made a bit of a cottage industry, if you will, of running around and saying how disengaged Trump was, how he didn't do any reading, how he didn't study, how he didn't know the issues, how when it came to the 2020 election and he was ordering the Justice Department to investigate this and arrest that and arrest them and investigate them and seize voting machines, that it was Barr who said, I will do none of these things because they are unconstitutional and illegal. And Barr, of course, in his testimony to the January 6th committee saying that, when Trump confronted him with illegal voting in Georgia and dead people voting here and that Barr looked at him and said, it's all bullshit. None of it's true. But Bill Barr just this week, after running around for months and writing a book saying that Trump should be nowhere near the White House again, this week said, of course I'm going to vote for him. After telling you that Trump is dangerous to this country and dangerous to democracy, he then came out this week and said, I will vote for him. Why would Bill Barr say such a thing? Because at the end of the day, on the right side of the aisle, and I don't mean right as in correct, I mean right as in right-wing side of the aisle, it all comes down to power and money. Because maybe there'll be a place for Bill Barr in a second Trump administration. Or maybe it's Trump's base that's the only one that's buying his books. Or because his speaking fee, the money he was getting for speaking fees had lowered and lowered and lowered the more chunks he took out of Trump. And he needed that base to go speak and make money with. This is really what we're facing. This presidential election, the elections for the U.S. House, remember the entire United States House of Representatives is up for re-election. All of them, all 435 of them. And some 23, I think it is, Senate seats. Or 27, it might be. Senate seats. This isn't so much an election of person against person as it is democracy continuing or democracy ending. Support of the 99% or the 1%. This really is a choice between the former political party known as Republicans and the existing only fully functional, he tried to say, political party left in this country, the Democratic Party. And a party that is, by the way, not perfect. I've said that to you repeatedly every single week on this program. I tell you that my party, the Democratic Party, is not perfect. We are not perfect. We're not even close. But we are the only ones governing. We're the only ones offering solutions. We're the only ones that have policy positions. Choice is not so much. Of course, it is part of the equation. Of course, it is. They are the two men carrying the banners. But this presidential election is not so much about this person v. this person. It's about, does the American experiment continue or does it end? Is this November 5th election just the next in a series, or is it the last? And Mr. Kennedy Jr.'s participation in this and the billionaires bankrolling him should be all you need to know that the billionaire class has decided that democracy should not continue. It's better for them and their own personal fortunes that it not continue. They are willing to put Trump back in office for their own bank accounts, not for the country, not for you, not for peace, not for anything other than their own personal bank accounts. 7:01 it is. Yeah, I had to lean in so I could see that. 7:01 Eastern Daylight Time here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 21st of April, 2024, entering our second hour. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. It means everything to us, whether you are an individual, a page that is local, regional, national, worldwide, whether you have a group that is public or private, small, large, also local, regional, national, or worldwide, and whatever the topic of your group might be. If you have allowed us to be part of what you have created and carved out on Facebook, we are eternally grateful to you. And maybe that's a way I should start phrasing it. A little corner of Facebook that you have carved out and created. If you are kind enough to allow us to be part of it, we are so very, very, very grateful to you. We hope you will continue to do so, and we hope you will take the program that you have allowed to be part of the corner of Facebook that you have created and carved out, and that you will share it with others. Our home group Facebook page is called That Other Side of Information. We are live there right now. You can comment and put questions and watch and like and all that fun stuff right there, right now. And we hope you will. That Other Side of Information on Facebook. We hope you will do it. We hope you'll check it out. We hope you'll become a member and be part of our group. And remember, whenever we're not on the air, the group is always there. The articles and the news stories and the animal advocacy, the environmental, the science, usually astronomical in nature. The no pun intended. Everything that we post there, it is the voice, it is the home of our program. That Other Side of Information on Facebook. If you have missed any of our programs in the past or any of our first hour, it's also That Other Side of Information on YouTube, our YouTube channel, That Other Side of Information. We are also That Other Side of Information on TikTok. I only mention TikTok because we gained like double-digit numbers of new followers this week. I have no idea why, but I'm grateful and I appreciate it. I have to say, I don't do a terrible amount of things on TikTok. Sergeant Mac is always encouraging me to do hits on TikTok during the week just to vent and get things out of my brain. and that it will build things. I tend to only go there for show promotion, but we've gotten, I think, like a dozen new followers just this past week. So welcome. Thank you. We deeply, deeply appreciate it. And in fact, you should probably check this really quick. I really hope I can do it fast. The promotion that we did for the program this week. Well, that can't be right. Is that really right? 12? No, that doesn't make sense. Only 12 people watched it? That doesn't make sense at all. That makes no sense. Usually, like our promotion for the program last week, 1,500 people watched it, which I just think is crazy. It's crazy to me. I think, unfortunately, only 12 watched it this week, but somehow I tend to think that's incorrect because usually it's easily over 500 and it varies, which is very strange. I'm just kind of looking at it now, but yeah, you can always check us out. There's just plenty of places to check us out. Let's put it that way. Hot101.net. Our name is our web address. Hot101.net. Go to our main website. It opens your listening. It's that simple. Very, very, very easy. Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. It opens and you're listening. No credit card, no login, password, retina scan, blood sample, firstborn. Don't have to sign over your mortgage. None of that. So check it out. Just check it out. You will appreciate it 24/7. If you can log on to the internet, you can listen to Hot 101. And it is not an exaggeration. You've heard me say 1,000 times. Among the very first internet radio stations on the planet was hot101.net. It is tradition. It is one of the first, one of the originators, and you should be checking it out. Hot101.net. Our name is our web address. Again, Apple App Store for Apple devices, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app. You can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. You can listen on any kind of device that has a speaker and connect to the internet. And of course, you can Bluetooth it into earbuds, headphones, Bluetooth it in the car, which I think is really underrated. You should be doing that. Just check it out. And of course, the TCP Media Group. Your questions and comments are welcome at my Facebook, Jeff Kennedy. Some of you are in there. It's been a very quiet chat so far. My cousin is in there. Phyllis has been there. Randall, of course, is there as always, the most loyal guy on the planet. Just be part of the program. We do have other topics that we're going to talk about, of course, but be part of the program. I hate lecturing at you. I don't like talking at you. I like having a conversation with you. I will put that reminds me, however, that I have been a bit lax in my job. We'll put the phone number on the screen. That's not really me singing so much as it is wasting time. Why do I think I got my own number wrong? Yeah, okay. I got it. Yeah, so that's our phone number, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. George reminds me we now have a whopping 410 followers on TikTok. It's taken a while to get there. Where's my grammar today? Gosh, my proper enunciation and grammar has just gone right out the window today. I'm not sure what's going on with that. 410 certainly doesn't sound like a lot. Sergeant Mac, I think, has about 1.3 million people that follow him on TikTok. It's taken us a heck of a long time to get to 410. But the interesting thing is that the journey from about 300 to 400 took about a month. It took us all that time. I think I've been on TikTok for 2 years now. It took us all that time to get to 300, and then we got to 400 like just that quick. And of course, the way TikTok works is that we can start sharing the, of course I hit the mic. I hit the mic every show. Every show I hit the mic. We can start broadcasting live to TikTok once we hit 1,000. So if you're on TikTok and you're not already following us, we ask you to give us a like, follow, subscription, whatever it is. No, that one's a follower. TikTok is a follower. YouTube is a subscription. You don't have to pay anything. I think that's one of the odd things about subscribing to a YouTube channel. You don't have to pay us anything. You're welcome to do it, but you don't have to. We hope that you'll subscribe to that other side of information on YouTube as well. You will get alerts every time we go live, every time we put new video there, new content there, you will get an alert and you can check it out. And yes, I'm trying to adjust my chair because my back is starting to kill me already. Facebook, of course, is all likes. Instagram is all likes. Twitter is all likes. No, that's a follow. Twitter's a follow. But you can find us all over the really major bits of social media. We hope that you will and continue to support the program. I just want to and I just want to say thank you to everybody who has done exactly that. Likes, follows, subscribes. Look, it is the ethos of social media. It's how we continue. It's how we grow. Likes, subscribes, and follows. Of course, that depends on the different social media platform as to what it is that you do at that particular platform, whether you like, subscribe, or follow. But we hope that you will do so with and for us. We want you to be part of the family, and whatever thing that you have to do is to like, subscribe, follow. We hope that you will do exactly that, and you will become part of the extended program family, that you'll be alerted when we're doing things, that you'll be the first to know when we're doing things, and that you'll become a part of the family that way. One thing about not having a guest is when I need to wet the palate again. There's no way for me to do it without some silence. So that was boring, wasn't it? Randall mentions another great first from the Biden administration. Randall's 100% right about this. I think I may have posted the article about this, but if I did not, then I apologize. I should have, because Randall's right. This was a big deal this week. President Biden, the Biden administration, the EPA directed the EPA and empowered the EPA to put 2 quote unquote forever chemicals on the Superfund listing. It is long overdue. I agree with you. Let's remember that a very different Republican Party, not the completely non-functional one that exists today, but a very different Republican Party, one that was angry, one that was running on grievance, one that was operating on fear, but was also governing. It was Richard Nixon that signed the legislation into law that created the Environmental Protection Agency. We just had Earth Day this past weekend, and there is, I used to think that there was that it was a very corny saying that there is no plan at B, like there's no plan B, there's no planet B, but it's a truth. When it's interesting that it's the largest polluters that seem to just flippantly say, well, we'll just colonize Mars. We're nowhere near being able to colonize Mars. We don't even have a permanent base on the moon that we're aware of. We're in no way ready to colonize Mars. The journey with our best rockets from Earth to Mars would still take months, let alone for people to survive on the surface, which is not hospitable for human life. Just the sheer amount of oxygen alone that would have to be carried to sustain people is staggering. So we're nowhere near this yet. We are not anywhere near a Star Trek future yet, unfortunately. This is the only planet we have. We are either going to take care of it and clean it up and protect it, or we'll be dead from it. It's that simple. As I attended my third of 4 weeks of adult religious education classes to become formalized members of our congregation here, it occurred to me today especially. Today we focused on the different committees and subgroups inside of our congregation that do different things. The group about Christian education, the group that handles social community outreach, the group that handles the maintenance of the building. But among all these different things were the groups that do outreach to veterans and the unsheltered and children and the poor. And there's an environmental action group. There's a social justice group at our church. The Moravians have always been on the forefront of these things. And it occurred to me, as we continue to talk more and more about the framers' original ideal that the state and the churches should have a firewall in between them, and that while our faith may inform the political decisions and policies that we support, the state shall not endorse one particular religion or faith. That's the establishment clause of the Constitution, in the way that the King of England established the Anglican Church. And to this day, King Charles, or the head of the royal family, is the head of the church, where the state and the church are merged. The United States was founded on a different principle, that the state and the church are separate entities, and that while faith can inform political decisions, the state shall not establish a state religion, and that the church shall not run the state the way the papacy ran the Roman Empire, and of course the succeeding empires that claimed to be Roman empires. Charlemagne, of course, who was essentially the king of France, named himself Holy Roman Emperor. Napoleon named himself Holy Roman Emperor. These various empires throughout Europe after the fall of the Roman Empire, who sought the recognition of the papacy as the successor to the Roman Empire, how church and state were merged, were one. And of course, the number of kings who had different popes murdered because they didn't support them, and et cetera, et cetera. But we don't do that here. We don't do that in the United States. But it did occur to me as I was listening to these different committees be explained to me and the work that they're doing, that I simply do not know how one can call themselves people of faith and still support policies and politicians that have displayed none, and I mean none, of that philosophy. I've mentioned to you before, I think the cat just walked in. I've mentioned to you before that I think it was Professor Eddie Glaude on Morning Joe that said, how can you run to be the head of government for a country when you hate almost all the people in it? And I should say that I find faith to be part of that. Government cannot, by the Constitution, and should not be, quote unquote, establishing state religion. It is unconstitutional. The church has no right, or the government has no right to choose one religion or faith over the other as the national faith religion. The Constitution specifically forbids it. It's the Establishment Clause. Government shall not establish. But it does seem to me, to sit into those adult Christian education classes and hear about the church's work, housing and trying to provide comfort to the unsheltered, to provide food to people who do not have enough, to help veterans, clothing drives, and there's a church in Bethlehem that regularly provides services to the unsheltered to get haircuts and get showers and baths and provide them new clothes, so especially before they might have an opportunity to go get interviewed for a job. If these very, very basic foundational tenets of the Christian faith, love thy neighbor, do unto me as you would have done unto you, as you care for the least among us, you care for me, that a rich man, a camel can pass through the eye of the needle easier than a rich man enter the kingdom of heaven. If you believe in these very basic and foundational Christian tenets, then there's an entire former political party in this country that I honestly have no idea how you can support. It makes no sense to me, because it can't be both, because they don't reconcile. The idea that you can hate your neighbor, that you could inflict violence upon them, that you could deny the immigrant, that the unsheltered should stay that way, that your money is your money and other people's money is your money, and that ultimately the only real goal in life is to accumulate money. There's nothing Christian about it. In fact, there's nothing of any of the three major Abrahamic religions about it. The right wing has bastardized faith and twisted it into this very, very dirty thing to convince you, good intentioned folks who live lives of faith, that if you just continue to empower the rich, good things will come to you. Except, funny enough, they never do. I say it every week. You're going to be sick of it. I'm going to say it again. The three richest people in the United States have as much wealth as the bottom 60%. The richest 8 people, the bottom 90%. The richest 600 or so people on the planet have own 90% of the planet's wealth. There's just shy of 8 billion people on Earth. 8 billion. Too many. More than the planet can sustain.
Yep.
But 8 billion. And about 600 or so, in fact, I think it's in the 640 range, if I'm not mistaken. Only about 600 of them own 90%. 90% of the planet's wealth. There is no faith on Earth that supports this. There are political philosophies, but there is no faith that supports such a thing. And Randall reminds me that tomorrow is Earth Day, and I think you are on the line. Hello, sir. Welcome. Forgive me for not getting to you last week. If there is anything about last week's program that you'd like to talk about, or anything, the floor is yours. I hope you will forgive me. I only had Connor for a short time. We tried to hit everything. So we did skip out on the phones last week, but Randall, the floor is yours. Hello, sir. I hope you are well.
Hope you well, and I hope Christine's well, and I hope George there, you're well.
George is here.
Anyway, anyway, yes, tomorrow is the 54th anniversary of Earth Day. April 22nd, 1970. And the first Earth Day demonstration for was held in Fairmont Park on the Plateau in Philadelphia, PA, USA. And I was there. I was 17. I was here in high school. I asked my mother if I told her I was going. I asked my mother if to be excused, and she said no. And of course, I ended up forging her signature
Ooh,
on the.
you rebel.
Oh, I know, but yeah, it was long deceased poet Allen Ginsberg
Yeah.
wrote a poem for that specific day. The title is "Done Get to a Tree." The things that then were, air pollution, water pollution, the issue that was just starting from
Your sound is going in and out again. That phone, you need a phone
Okay. I'm on
or a
the phone,
landline.
but
You need something.
yeah. Okay. Let me switch over.
But
Hold on.
I caught what you said about Randall brings up a really important point while you're playing with the phone there. Let me just say this. Randall brings up a really, really important point, and it reminds me of something. What Randall was talking about is that the coal fire plants of the Midwest, that exhaust, if you will, would be carried by the jet stream toward the east, and it created the problem of acid rain. And you can Google the old pictures of trees that looked healthy at the bottom but had been stripped at the top. They were literally being eaten by the rain. The rain was literally acidic. It would eat paint off of cars. It would degrade concrete sidewalks and pavement on roads. It affected roofs of homes and schools. And it was a Republican administration. The administration of George H.W. Bush, Reagan's VP, who served a term immediately after Reagan by lying horribly about Michael Dukakis, but then again, Dukakis ran a terrible campaign. That's another topic for another day. It was his administration, in conjunction with Democrats, and his EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, that passed legislation that ended the acid rain issue. They didn't just curtail it. They didn't just slow it down. They ended it. Does anyone talk about acid rain now? And they did it by carbon. They did it through several different methods. The invention of some of the first carbon capture. They did it through trading carbon credits. That a company was given X amount of carbon credits, which meant you could expel X number of tons of carbon into the atmosphere. And that if you went over that, you paid. You paid essentially a tax or a fine. Or to use a sports analogy, you went over the salary cap, so you had to pay a fine. You paid double. And those carbon credits could be traded back and forth between companies. Companies that expelled more could buy the credits from other companies who didn't expel at all, or didn't meet the upper threshold of what they could expel. They also did it through taxes and fines, that if you're going to use this particular raw material, if you will, in the manufacturing process that's going to turn into this up in the atmosphere, that you are going to pay an extra fee on top of that for using that particular material. And it was a very comprehensive solution. And it ended the acid rain problem in this country. A Republican administration. Because a Republican administration that could drive through West Virginia and the forests of Pennsylvania and New York State and New Hampshire and Vermont and Maine and see the upper halves of trees that had been looked like they had been dipped in acid. Bare branches, no leaves, and the lower bits of the trees were somehow still alive but yet affected. Many of those trees died because they didn't have enough leaves to continue to bring in enough sunlight to turn into chloroform, etc. I don't have to tell you how plants grow. It was a Republican administration in conjunction with Democrats and his own Environmental Protection Agency. By the way, the career public servants that served in the EPA, that served both Republicans and Democrats equally and ably, that solved this problem. It's an extremely important point that Randall brings up. We have done this before. Republicans and Democrats have long histories of working together to solve problems, coming at a problem from different angles, to be fair, but negotiating with each other and coming up with solutions. And that one may have been pretty much the last time that happened, in good faith. Now, we'll get to the Ukraine funding bill later in the program.
Actually, that was not the last time.
It's a matter of opinion.
No, it was not, because in 1992, the world agreed and the world acted upon and did away with a pollutant that was killing our ozone layer that protects us from radiation from the sun, etc. And that was making fluorocarbons, illegal, period. You can't make them anymore, period. So it wasn't just the bill, the EPA cracking down and also, Jeff, it wasn't just carbon tax. It was requiring better scrubbers to get the acid out before the exhaust smoke was put into the atmosphere.
Right, the beginning of carbon capture.
I went to college, down in the Blue Ridge Mountains outside of Asheville at Warren Wilson. And right there next to our campus was the Blue Ridge Parkway, and on up the Blue Ridge Parkway is the highest mountain west of the Mississippi, Mount Mitchell. And I remember there in the late 70s, the whole west base of Mount Mitchell, every tree was dead from acid rain. Every tree on the west base of Mount Mitchell, or highest mountain east of the Mississippi River, was dead from acid rain. Go ahead, bro.
No, keep it going. You're right. I mean, what can I say? It look, the very fundamental differences between
the ozone layer that was just almost gone totally over Antarctica is now almost gone completely because the planets work collectively to ban fluorocarbons, from hairspray, from deodorant spray, from use in air conditioning. That chemical to heat the ozone up was like Super Pac-Man eating ozone versus other pollutants that this planet produces. Go ahead.
You're spot on. What can I say? I mean, look, the basic differences, folks, between Republicans and Democrats that actually go back to the founding of the country, go back to the framers in the Continental Congress itself, are that conservatives, if you will, or Republicans, what we would call Republicans today, would say that government only has the power to do things that are specifically outlined in the founding documents. The Declaration, Constitution, the subsequent amendments, the Federalist Papers, and so on, and various court decisions. As we have built a massive catalog of court decisions in this country in 240 years. But at least at the beginning, when federal court decisions were just being, when the federal courts were just being established and decisions had just started to be made, these founding documents, if you will, of the country, it was Republicans that felt that the governments on all levels, but especially the federal government, could only do what these documents and court decisions specifically outlined that they were allowed to do. Democrats, of course, took the opposite side and said, well, these documents and these court cases do not say that we cannot do these things. It's not written here, therefore government has the power. There is nothing in these documents to say you cannot do that, therefore we take it that we can. And that continues to an extent today with what's left of the quote unquote sane Republicans. And I'm going to go off on a little diatribe about that later, about Morning Joe and Joe Scarborough and the quote unquote sane Republicans. But we'll talk about that in a minute, or in a few minutes, or whenever, hopefully before we sign off. But there is no functioning Republican Party now, so there's no one to negotiate with. You have a Republican Party, or a former Republican Party, that only stands against everything. Anything that might benefit anyone other than a billionaire, we're against it. There's no one to negotiate with. And look, George H.W. Bush allowed himself to be bought off by the Reaganites. He's the man that in the 1980 Republican presidential primary said, your tax plan is garbage.
Economics.
It's a lie. Trickle down is a lie. You cannot cut taxes and increase revenue. It doesn't work that way. It's math. Not only did he call it voodoo economics, I remember him saying in subsequent campaign stops and debates, saying it's just math. It's simple math. If you have $1.50 of it goes in taxes, you have 50 cents left. If you cut that to 25 cents, you're short 25 cents. It's math. The modern former political party known as Republicans has now turned into no and no and no and no and no. And if you really were to ask even the wackiest, and I use that term very intentionally, because I do my very level best not to name call on this program, but even the literal crazies of the Republicans, the Matt Gaetz, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, Boeberts, Louis Gohmert, Andy Biggs, Gosar from Arizona, whom, by the way, the rest of his family says he's literally has mental disease and should be nowhere near government, shouldn't even be out in public, to be honest. If you ever ask them what they stand for, they can't tell you. They can't really spell out what they support, because they don't support anything. They simply are doing what the billionaires tell them to do, which is to run government into the ground, spend as little money as humanly possible so that rich people don't have to pay taxes. There's nothing American about it. There's nothing of faith about it. And even though that separation should always remain, the Establishment Clause I could make an argument, is the single most important thing in the Constitution. Faith can and probably and should guide our policy making, as long as government does not establish a religion itself. And how does anything that Marjorie Taylor Greene or any of the people that I named, and if you want to look in the Senate, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, Josh Hawley, Rand Paul, Rick Scott, how does anything that they supposedly stand for inform a faith that they say they are part of? How does it inform policy making at all? How does it inform governing at all? It doesn't. They only care about the richest people in this country and allowing that very, 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 very small group of people to gain even more. If you are an actual billionaire, and none of us are, by the way, and none of us are temporarily inconvenienced billionaires, by the way. We are not just people temporarily living without our billions. We don't have billions. We're not going to. So we are not temporarily inconvenienced billionaires here, the way some in the Republican Party have tried to convince us that you're just a step away from being a billionaire yourself. No, you're not. We are the least economically mobile of the so-called first world countries on earth. The least. If you are born poor, you will die poor. If you are born in the middle class, you have a much stronger percentage chance of dying poor than you do of either maintaining and especially not moving up in the economic classes. And an entire political structure has been bought out by a tiny group of people who have made they've made several conscious decisions, among which are that democracy is no longer necessary for them to gain wealth. It's no longer convenient. That government itself is no longer convenient in their relentless pursuit of wealth. They've also made a decision that, and I've said it before, what's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. And nothing better illustrates that than the so-called inflation that we have in this country. We do not have inflation. We have wage wealth extraction. One thing the Biden administration did is it put money in the hands of people who needed it. It put money in the hands of people who spend 100% of the money that they get just to stay alive. Rich people really hate that. They think that's their money, not yours. The rich hate that wages are rising in this country. They consider labor an expense. They consider it a liability. We would all be slave labor were it not for government. The billionaires don't like labor. They don't like to have to pay for it. They want it for free. That's why they've moved so much manufacturing to places like China and Thailand and Vietnam, where they make pennies an hour and where prison populations are forced to work so that everything is just pure profit. They have decided that what's theirs is theirs and what's yours is theirs. Certainly nothing Christian about that.
Well, let's talk about the equalization that happened this week.
Go for it.
The Deep Red South that has all their anti-worker laws, you know, we're a free state. You don't have to join a union. Well, here, you know, it's taken years, but watching what happened last fall with the UAW, it's the three big American auto manufacturers. The workers voted at the VW owned plant in South Carolina, voted overwhelmingly 78% to unionize. And the UAW is going after, well, I hope they go after Tesla first. Just to stick it to that billionaire owner that is so anti-people. But any case, there's so many non-union factories in Kentucky, Tennessee, that I look forward to unionization by the UAW and those auto factories to make American people, their families, and their local communities stronger economically.
Henry Ford was no great friend of labor. In fact,
Nope.
As we continue to learn more about him by looking back through history, he was an anti-Semite. He hated unions, but he was also the man that said, I can't stay in, I'll bastardize this quote, of course, I'll butcher the heck out of it, but for essentially said that I can't stay in business very long if I make a product that my very own workers cannot afford. The people that work for me need to be able to buy the very product that we're making. And to a great extent, business has forgotten that. They're willing to sell less and at higher prices to crush the very people that they need to buy what they make. I hope I will get to an article that I posted this week, because I did post the article about the vote in Tennessee. And by the way, I have every belief in my head that Randall knows this. Volkswagen, of course, is a German company. And the German Constitution, the post-war German Constitution, a constitution that was largely written under the influence of the United States. It was the Truman administration that strongly encouraged the Germans to include in their new constitution that any corporation, any German-based corporation of 500 employees or more, must have representation on its board of directors from the union. Roughly 67%. In fact, I've heard some statistics as high as 74% of the German private sector is unionized. The first time the Volkswagen plant here in Tennessee tried to unionize, it was Tennessee Republican officials, including the governor, the senators from Tennessee, were trying to, Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, were trying to scare the workers and tell them that the factory would close and move if they voted for the union. The company came out and said, no, that's absolutely not true. We're not doing any of that. In fact, we're used to having unions. We have unions at all of our plants. And we look forward to working with you. These European-based companies that now inhabit the United States have learned very, very quickly that they have a friend in these red state governments, that they can do things here that they cannot do in their own countries. All Volkswagen operations in Germany are unionized. Those unions sit on the corporate board. They're used to it. It's a way of life there. They got it from us. But they've learned very quickly that half the political establishment in this country will help them crush those very unions and hold down labor costs. When these companies either build new plants here in this country, or the chip manufacturers, especially from the CHIPS Act, that are moving back to the United States, they're not going to New York State. They're not going to Colorado even.
9 out of 10 of them are going to red state.
They're going to the former Confederacy because they know that the state and local governments will help them crush the very workers that they're hiring at these plants. Go ahead, keep going. I do have the article about, let me just see if I can get a couple paragraphs out of this really quick. Randall's very right about raising this issue. I did post the article on, oh goodness, when did I put it up? I think I put it up either yesterday or Friday. I'm not 100% sure. It says 1 day ago, but then the other article I was reading from said 2 days ago, and I could have swore I put that up on Thursday. But regardless, employees at a Volkswagen, this is from Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's an AP Associated Press article. Written by Tom Krishner and Kristen M. Hall. Originally written on April 20th. So that would have been, that was yesterday. Take that back. Employees at a Volkswagen factory in Chattanooga, Tennessee, overwhelmingly voted to join the United Auto Workers Union Friday. So the vote took place on Friday. The article is from Saturday. In a historic first test of the UAW's renewed effort to organize non-union factories. The union wound up getting 2,628 votes, or 73% of the ballots cast. And this thing just put an ad up in front of me. It kept me from compared with only 985 who voted no in an election run by the National Labor Relations Board. Oh my goodness, government ran an election. Well, yes, they did. They ran an election to keep those who were advocating for the union from being intimidated, fired, harassed outside of work, beaten, or worse. Both sides have 5 business days to file objections to the election, the NLRB said. If there are none, the election will be certified, and VW and the union must, quote, begin bargaining in good faith. President Joe Biden, who backed the UAW and won its endorsement, said the union's win follows major union gains across the country, including actors, port workers, Teamsters members, writers, and healthcare workers. As Senator Elizabeth Warren is fond of saying, unions built the middle class in this country and unions will restore it. Go ahead, sir.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yep, I'm going to let you empty your head.
Okay. You know, there's actually two things that built the middle class in this country. Number one was the GI Bill that Truman got passed through Congress. No, I'm sorry. Let me back that up. Number one was FDR. When he created jobs across the board for different trades. When he created jobs like for artists that couldn't sell their art. Hey, we're creating public art. He created jobs for the unemployed. You know, the conservation to build our national park systems. But then the real middle, again, now going back to Truman. Was the GI Bill. Those millions and millions of service. Well, shipping wars. When my mother and father's generation gained everything from the GI Bill, being able to go to college. Private enterprise.
I can barely hear you.
All right, let me turn this over.
Jeez.
How's that now?
I swear to God, I'm going to send you one of my old phones.
How's that now?
It's fine. It's just, you seem to just disappear. I don't understand what it is. It turns into like 1920s radio. You get really super tinny and then you just kind of fade away.
No, I just put it back on speakerphone. So now I had it on just holding my ear and talking to the phone. Any case, yeah, the real beginning of the middle class was the GI Bill in the late 40s, and then it was unionization, and therefore the 50s and the 60s was incredible growth and prosperity for not just the middle class, but the lower class, working class, and the poor. And that all went to its end, starting in 1980 with the election of Ronald Reagan, with his controllers of buying trickle-down theory, and with his number one, his destruction of the Air Traffic Controllers Union. He sent out the total message to corporate America: kill the union, i.e. kill the middle class. Go ahead.
After, by the way, appearing, after being invited by the union to appear at their national convention, the air traffic controllers, and standing in front of them and saying that he would be a friend of labor and a friend of their union, and asking for their endorsement and support, and then them being foolish enough to give it to him. The Air Traffic Controllers Union endorsed Reagan in 1980. The Meat Packers Union endorsed Ronald Reagan. The National Union that covered roofers endorsed Reagan. And he destroyed all of them. He immediately turned on them the first instant he got. He lied straight to their faces. Reagan came to the Bethlehem steel plant, not 3 miles from me, and stood in front of the blast furnaces and told the crowd there that these blast furnaces would build the same blast furnaces that created the steel that won a world war, built the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, that built this country, would operate for another 100 years and sustain them and their families for generations. And then he dismantled the tariffs on Chinese steel and destroyed Bethlehem Steel. That I know it's become a very all too used kind of phrase in the United States now, that when somebody tells you who they are, listen to them. When they're lying to you, listen to them. The American people are not stupid. Overwhelmingly, they are not stupid. And I think overwhelmingly they know better. But when a man, his campaign, and the party he has he now rides roughshod over, tells you that it's more important to fear the trans student, the gay man or woman, the person of color, that your hatred and fear of them should override your own ability to work and sustain your own family. You do know better. You do. I refuse to believe that you don't. You do know better. Mr. Trump can tell you all he wants that Black people are coming for your jobs. He's lying to you, and you know it's not true. Somewhere in your heart, you know it. When migrants show up at the Mexican border because they simply want to make sure that they don't get murdered in the countries that they came from, governments that we, by and large, the United States, destabilized, you know these people are not coming to take your jobs. You know it. You know it. When Herod ordered the slaughter of the innocents, it was Egypt that took in the migrant, Joseph the carpenter, Mary, his wife and mother of Jesus. They welcomed the migrants. You know better. Stop allowing yourselves to be lied to. You know better. And these are exactly the kinds of discussions that we need to be having with crazy Uncle Larry at Thanksgiving. And the your fathers and fathers-in-law who want 200 guns in the attic. It's great, fine, have them, enjoy it. But the people that you're voting for don't think you even should be alive. You're old and sick. They don't think you should be alive. How do you run to be the president of a country when you hate nearly everyone in it? And say it on a daily basis. The folks who were not picked for the jury in the election interference case in New York, because it's not a hush money case, folks. That's an aspect of it. Trump paid off Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet so it didn't affect an election. It's an election interference case. The hush money is only part of it. And that guy's going to tell you how to live your life. The people who have been turned away from that jury, some of them have spoken to the press and talked about just how, well, they talked about how bloodshot his eyes are and how he looks like he's on drugs. They've talked about the genuinely odd color of his skin. They have talked about how he fell asleep during the proceedings and how he's trying to disrupt those proceedings. And at least one of those jury members who was sat and chosen the very next day, even though the court ordered that the identities of these people will not be made public under penalty of law. In this case, contempt of court. Yeah, it came to me eventually. Contempt of court. One of the people who was actually chosen to be on the jury went back to the judge the very next day and said, I can't serve on this jury. I'm scared for my life. What happened to that poor person in one night, I can't even imagine. Because it hasn't really been widely publicized. Was it social media? Were there people waiting outside their house? Was it family members who happened to be Trumpers who threatened them? I have no idea. But a person who was sat, went through the interview process, answered the questions faithfully and honestly under oath, and was prepared to serve on this jury, and came back in less than 24 hours and said, I can't do this. I'm fearing for my life. Hold on just a second, Randall. 8:06. We are into our final hour of the program. Looks like we might make it right up to the Villain's View. 8:06 p.m. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 21st of April, 2024. If you have missed any of the program up until this point, or you would like to catch up on it throughout the week, go to youtube.com/thatothersideofinformation, our YouTube channel. Thrilled that George is here with us for the program. It's always a better program when George is here. I always feel better when he is here with us live. So it's George and I carrying you through another Sunday here in the United States of America and around the globe. Wherever you are on Facebook, come to my personal Facebook, Jeff Kennedy, and the program is also at our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, and 137 other places that we have shared it to as well. Stay where you are, watch. I will try to keep up with your comments. If you're making them, you can come to my personal Facebook. We desperately ask you for your comments and questions and to be part of the program. The Villain's View is coming up live on That Other Side of Information and Hot 101 right after us, hot101.net. If you are below, on, or above Earth and you can connect to the internet, you can listen to hot101.net. It's very simple. If you have a device with a speaker that can connect to the internet, you can listen. Hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app. You can also tell Alexa to play hot101.net 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The DJs and the talk programming on Hot 101 be a part of it. TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA as well. Our plan for next week. I'm still working on it, but our plan for next week, Liz Mkhitaryan, founder of Stop Moms for Liberty, returns to the program. She and I have to thank her immensely. She and I are trying to find a school board member from the Central Bucks School District. If you are alive, breathing, and paid attention to the school elections of 2023, then you have heard of the Central Bucks School District. We're trying to find a member of the Central Bucks School District to join us, as well as a current Democratic or former Democratic member of the Nazareth School District, not too far from me, about 15 miles from where I live, to talk about what the Moms for Liberty is doing to school boards across the country. Central Bucks was a dead red Moms for Liberty district, and Democrats flipped it. We're going to talk to a Central Bucks member about how the schools have changed and the school board has changed in Central Bucks now that that change is made. Nazareth got taken over by the Moms. We're trying to find somebody from Nazareth to talk about how their board has changed from the sane to the insane, and how Central Bucks went from the insane to the sane. And again, Liz Mkhitaryan, founder of Stop Moms for Liberty, is our guest next week, the 28th. I guess I'll deal with May after next week we'll talk about May. May might be a very choppy month. I have things at church. Memorial Day, Mother's Day. May might be a very, very choppy month, but we'll talk about May. We should probably save that and either talk about it at the end of the program or after that. Last hour of the program, again, Villains View live from 9 p.m. 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189 is the phone number. It will be open after we're done with Randall. We want you to call in as well. Whatever you might think of Randall calling every week, and he's our friend. We love him. He's the most loyal guy on the planet. Randall shows you every single week that calling this program doesn't hurt a bit. I will not scream at you. I will not call you names. I will not tell you you're wrong. We're not going to fight. We're not going to whatever. You can call and be part of this program, and you can help push the discussion. If there's something that I'm not talking about and that you want to talk about, call me and tell me. If you disagree with me and you want to have an argument, call me and tell me. We can do that too. But the phone line is there for you to be a participant, a live, actual in the flesh. Well, not necessarily in the flesh, but you know what I mean. Active in real time participant of this program, as well as your comments on the program at my Facebook or through the YouTube. And again, if you missed any of the program, YouTube, best place to catch up. So Randall, go back ahead. It's floor is yours, my friend. Whatever you got left.
Real quick, I want to apologize for my cheap flip phone.
It's fine. It happens.
I want to apologize to everybody listening out there that you couldn't hear my comments at that point in time. But I want to go back again. Tomorrow is the 54th anniversary of Earth Day, which the catalyst of that and in the early 70s was, number one, the passage of the Clean Air Act. Number two, the passage of the Clean Water Act. We didn't see fires after they were started in the EPA, and then the EPA was created. We didn't see the Ohio River on fire and polluted. We didn't see, I go down the list like incredibly long. I'm not going to. What I'm going to say is that what has really got me chewing at the bone is what might happen for probably this coming June ruling from this super majority extreme Republican U.S. Supreme Court. And that is the case of the EPA writing rules and regulations. And that case is so critical for not just the EPA, for every federal law that's ever been passed, for any federal agency to do rules and regulations on. And if they rule against the EPA, they're going to go after everything else across the board. That, you know, the gist of it is, well, Congress didn't write you the right to enforce this or that or this or that. No, they passed laws that these agencies will write the rules and regulations. But if the Supreme Court rules that no, they don't have the right to write rules and regulations unless Congress states the exact rule and regulation they must follow, well, we're back to zero across the board. And go ahead, and I'm going to hang up.
Well, listen, before I get into that, thank you very, very, very much for calling as always and for being such a loyal friend of the show. It means a tremendous amount to us. It really, really does. And I'm thankful that you continue to do it because this is not always the most exciting program on the planet. I will freely admit that because I don't scream and yell and threaten people and all that other crap. It's just not my style. And I don't think it's constructive to the national debate, but I appreciate that you're here every week. It means everything to me. As always, I want you to stay healthy. For goodness sake, please stay well. breathe, take your medicines, get out, get some fresh air, do whatever you got to do, but just take care of yourselves, you, your wife, your family, everybody. And by the way, I want you to start telling the family to listen too. I see you on. I never see that. You never tell me that the kids are listening. Get them kids on. Them start listening, darn it, and get them in, would you? But listen, seriously, take care of yourself and thank you. I want stay healthy.
You too, and you, Christine, and you, George, and God bless you all. Bye.
Thanks so much, Randall. Randall brings up a really important point. There's a very important case in front of the Supreme Court. And I suspect this is not going to go well. It could be the single most destructive thing to the federal government since its founding after the Articles of Confederation. What Randall's referencing is that there is a Koch family funded and corporation funded polluting fossil fuel company funded case that has been brought that the Supreme Court took. And again, this is the Supreme Court doing what it was paid to do. This is Roberts and Alito and Thomas and Barrett and Gorsuch and Kavanaugh doing what they were paid to do and continue and by some reporting continue to be paid to do. They are hearing a case now about the EPA's authority to regulate carbon in the atmosphere. One of the worst greenhouse gases. When you burn fossil fuels, you get carbon monoxide. It gets thrown up into the air. It is a greenhouse gas. Sunlight comes in, it heats, but it does not bounce back out. That heat does not then redissipate into space. It is held in by carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is a one-way door, if you will. It lets everything in. It doesn't let it out. The EPA's charter does not specifically say that it can regulate carbon emissions. It is implied in its mandate, but it does not specifically say that. So these fossil fuel companies, the Koch family, these billionaires that would see increased cost by having these emissions regulated, sued. And the case has progressed all the way to the Supreme Court. They are arguing that because the EPA's original charter and mandate does not specifically say that they can regulate carbon emissions, that means they can't. And that the only way they can regulate carbon emissions is if Congress writes additional legislation to say that the EPA can regulate such a thing. Now, what does this mean? Just think about this now. It means that the entire functionality of the federal government could be undermined. Now, here's a bold thing I want to say at the top. Because President Lincoln did this. There was a Supreme Court case during Lincoln's administration during the Civil War that had to do with his prosecution of the war, with the way he was conducting himself during the war. That's something I want to say it was the suspension of habeas corpus, but I might have that wrong. That case was, the Lincoln administration was sued. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can't do this. It's unconstitutional. Lincoln ignored them because the Supreme Court in and of itself has no enforcement mechanism. The Supreme Court does not have its own police force. It does not have its own military branch. It doesn't have its It doesn't even have a sergeant. Well, I think it might have a sergeant at arms, but it doesn't have, it has no enforcement mechanism. The enforcement of its decisions in many ways comes from the honor system, that we obey the Constitution, that the Constitution has given the Supreme, well, it really didn't give the Supreme Court the power of judicial review. It is a power, judicial review is a power taken upon itself by the Supreme Court, that was taken upon itself by the Supreme Court, but also that the Supreme Court, what the Constitution does say is that the Supreme Court is the court of last resort. It is the final arbiter after you go to local courts, state, regional courts, state courts, federal district court, appeal. They are the final appeal court. They are the court of last resort. They are the final arbiter. So let's remember, the Biden administration, any Congress, is actually not bound by law to obey the Supreme Court. They could very well be ignored. And the Supreme Court has been ignored in the past. Roosevelt ignored the Supreme Court. Lincoln did it. But what Randall's talking about is this, again, this lawsuit that says the EPA cannot regulate carbon emissions because their original mandate, the original legislation that created the EPA, does not specifically say that they can. So let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the fossil fuel companies win this case, and that the EPA does not, that the Supreme Court decides the EPA does not have jurisdiction to regulate carbon emissions. That would essentially be the death knell of the EPA. Because then here would come the next lawsuit. They can't regulate forever chemicals in water. Here comes the lawsuit against the Food and Drug Administration that says they can't regulate the quality of beef, or that your vitamins won't kill you. Or how about the fact that prescription drugs don't kill you? Because the original mandate doesn't say it. The original mandate of the National Highway Transportation Board doesn't talk about seatbelts. Or the Federal Highway Administration doesn't talk about speed limits. Or the Department of Energy's regulation over fuel economy standards. These are not things that are in the original mandates of these agencies. And therefore, gosh, I mean, I can't even really estimate the percentage of the regulatory power of the federal government would simply be wiped away with a single court decision. It's staggering to think of. But then why is the fossil fuel industry bringing this case? Because they want the destruction of government. That's why I keep saying this election is not just about Biden versus Trump or liberal versus conservative. It's about democracy over totalitarianism. Will this election be the next in a series, or will it be the last? The billionaires want the destruction of government. Libertarianism in its extreme wants a legislature, courts, a president, and the military. And that's it. Libertarians would tell you that the Department of Education shouldn't exist. Department of Energy shouldn't exist. The FDA should not exist. The EPA should not exist. The Securities and Exchange Commission should not exist. The FCC should not exist. The government is here only to provide the common defense. That's it. If this case is ruled in favor of the fossil fuel companies, first off, you'll see an absolute flood of other cases. As I meant, and these are only the head of a pin's amount of cases that you might see. Well, the government can't regulate the beef industry or the chicken poultry industry, or they don't have the right to tell you what a quote unquote organic vegetable is compared to something else. They can't tell the auto manufacturers that you must get 25 miles to the gallon, or that you have to wear a seatbelt, or you have to wear a helmet when you're riding a motorcycle. The full regulatory power of the federal government will be removed. You can be damn sure these traders on Wall Street will sue and say the federal government doesn't have the right to regulate what we do because it wasn't in the original legislation that created the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is bullshit, by the way, because it is. It very well might be the end of the regulatory power of the government until Congress, and let's remember, only a Democratic Congress will do this. Republicans will not. They want to control government, but they also don't want government to exist. Congress would literally have to pass thousands and thousands of bills just to restore the full regulatory ability of the FDA itself. And then another several thousand for the EPA. And then every time something new was created, there's a new chemical or a new manufacturing process that yields these other chemicals. Every time that would happen, that the EPA would normally step in and say, we're going to stop this runoff that's going into the water systems that's poisoning and killing people, an individual piece of legislation would have to be passed giving them that regulatory authority. It would stifle and freeze government, and it would essentially end the regulatory power of the federal government over damn near everything. And that's exactly what the billionaire class wants. They want government neutered. And what's left of it, they want to own and control. Why do the billionaires only want the Department of Defense to exist? Because we spend $1 trillion a year on it, and they're stuffing all of that in their pockets. The EPA does not bring them money, so they want it shot down. Department of Education is not making them money, so they want that ended. The FDA costs them money. It doesn't bring it to them, so they want that shut down. Regulations on Wall Street do not stimulate profits. They cost profits. So we got to shut that down. How much more oil and gas would the fossil fuel industry sell us? And I don't mean natural gas, gasoline. Would they sell if your car went back to getting 10 miles to the gallon? Or we could now put lead back in gasoline because it was the EPA that told us we had to take lead out. But that's not in their original charter. And the Supreme Court just said they're not allowed to do it. Jesus, we go back to, I've told you 100 times, it's all too convenient a joke that that Republicans want to return us to the 50s. That's one of these phrases. It's become all too flippant, and that we just kind of throw out there when it comes to Republicans and their treatment of women and minorities, for that matter. They want to take us back to the 50s. I agree with you. They do. The 1850s. Randall bringing up this case it's a damn big deal. It's a big deal. Regulations are not inherently restrictive. They are protections. In fact, we should stop calling them regulations. They are protections. The seatbelt in your car protects you from death in an accident. The fibers and technology in the windscreen, in the glass of your cars, which is also something, by the way, that the government has mandated so that it doesn't shatter and slice you into 1,000 bits. These are protections. The fact that when you go buy beef at the grocery and it doesn't kill you is a protection. The fact that your financial planner has a fiduciary responsibility to protect your money first before growing it or making money from your money is a federal regulation. It's a protection. That the buildings that you work in and that we live in have to meet a certain standard. And that a stiff breeze doesn't blow it down. These are all federal regulations. No, they're protections. They protect you. And Republicans and the Kochs and the extreme right wing and the people that are bankrolling these ridiculous lawsuits and the 6 Supreme Court justices that they have in their pockets want to destroy all of it. Something, and this could go to the very extreme. You might think that what I'm going to say is silly, but this could go, think about how far this could go. Oh, the beef at the grocery has to be refrigerated so it doesn't spoil? Not anymore. Because the FDA didn't specifically say we have to refrigerate it in their charter. Oh, fish that have mercury in their bloodstreams, we can't sell that? Oh, well, that didn't specifically say that in the legislation that created the FDA, so I guess we can now. The fact that it's going to poison you and stunt the brain growth of your children, yeah, it's okay. We made money when we sold it. This relentless pursuit of wealth and profit is repulsive. It's anti-American. It's anti-freedom. It's anti-democratic. It's anti-Christian. It's anti-Jewish. It's anti-Muslim. It's anti-faith with any kind of conscience whatsoever. No pun intended, folks, but my God in heaven, are we not better than this? But because the 6 right-wingers on the Supreme Court are in the pockets of the people that put them there, there is an excellent possibility that the entire protective regulatory ability of the government is going to disappear. And those cases will trickle down into all the individual states and territories. Now, the Pennsylvania state constitution guarantees clean air, clean water, and clean land. But the government agencies enforce that. Couldn't you see here in Pennsylvania, even though the Constitution says that we guarantee clean water, it doesn't say how. So then they sue that. And then the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, which is already pretty effing toothless, would become even more toothless. Oh, yeah, we understand that you have the constitutional ability to protect the land, air, and water, But that guarantee in the Constitution doesn't exactly say how you're allowed to do that. So really, until the legislature specifically defines exactly what and how you can regulate, I guess you can't regulate anything. The frackers in Pennsylvania have already ruined millions of acres of farmland and countless waterways. Imagine them with no regulatory oversight. That's what we're looking at nationally. It's staggering to think, absolutely staggering to think how far this could go. And that leads me to something that I wanted to mention that I saw on Morning Joe this week. Oh, I actually listened to it because I was listening to it in the car on the way to work. There's a woman who wrote a book, and I'm forgetting the name of the title of the book, and I'm forgetting the author. And again, I was listening to it in the car while driving. And if you drive in Pennsylvania, you'll know that if you're driving on the way to work and you're driving at 80 miles an hour, there's probably a line of a half a dozen people behind you who don't think you're going fast enough. So the 6 inches off your back bumper with their high beams on, trying to push you out of the way. And if they kill you along the way, well, then that's your fault. But that said, look, I'm not a world traveler. I'm not. I've never been further west than Houston, Texas in this country. And even that was just a layover. Never been to California. Never been to Arizona. No, Vegas. I'm sorry. I was in Vegas. I went to Vegas a couple times. As far as traveling outside the country, I've only been to the Bahamas and Mexico. I am not a world traveler. I'm not. But I have never found worse drivers anywhere in the country than right here in Pennsylvania. And the folks in the Lehigh Valley especially love to complain about the people from Philly and Jersey and how they drive. I learned how to drive in Jersey, and it's better than a lot of you around here. I guarantee it. And that's going to tick some people off around here too damn bad because it's the truth. Driving in New York City and Jersey taught me how to drive. It taught me how to drive safely, believe it or not. Around here, oh God, we got to be 6 inches away from each other. And in the dead middle of the day, we have our high beams on. I've never seen anything like it. And if you're going 85, you're going too slow. If you're going 105, you're probably going too slow. Regardless, let me get back to this. There was a woman who wrote a book. She was talking about the evolution of the dysfunction or non-function of Republicans. And she said something that kind of just came out of her in a stream of consciousness, answering a question by Joe Scarborough. And she talked about the quote unquote before times in the Republican Party. And what she meant was before Reagan. And Joe Scarborough, who is a former Republican congressperson, I believe he served 4 terms. Might have been 5, might have been 10 years, but I could be wrong. It might have been less too, because he wasn't there for that long. But he was swept in the midterms of Bill Clinton's first term, 1994. He was part of the Gingrich Revolution. Mr. Scarborough likes to talk a lot about how he's no longer a formal member of the Republican Party any longer because he doesn't believe in Trump and won't follow him. And he has, if you watch Morning Joe, and I watch it every morning. My disagreements with Mr. Scarborough don't keep me from watching. It's still an exceptionally informative program. They have the best guests. They have authors, and they have so many good topics, and it's such great discussion and coverage of the news. I'll keep, just because you don't agree with him on everything doesn't mean I don't watch it. And I'll keep watching it. But that said, he tried to place himself into this quote unquote before times of the Republican Party, where we went to Washington to govern and to balance budgets he was part of the Gingrich Revolution. He voted for impeachment of Bill Clinton. You can draw a straight line from Nixon's Southern strategy to Reagan's Southern strategy, from the Paul Weyrich who said we don't want people to vote, to the Lee Atwaters, the Ehrlichmans and Haldeman's, and who started the war on drugs to jail as many people of color as they possibly could, to Gingrich, who started Republicans on this fascist bent, to Karl Rove, directly to Trump, and to the complete non-functioning Republican Party that we see today, owned wholly by billionaires who want government destroyed and ended, but still have them in charge of it so they can keep getting paid. And to hear Joe Scarborough talk about how I was part of the before times, bullshit you were. You were right in the middle of it. You might have woken up a bit recently, but you were right in the middle of it. Republicans, since the Republican Great Depression, have always been the party of big business and rich people. But even in the 40s and 50s and into the 60s, they generally wanted the same things for the country the Democrats did. They just disagreed on how we would get there. Now, they don't want anything for the good of the country. They don't want anything for anything or for anybody except the billionaires that own them. And I know I said this at the beginning of the program. If you could give Matt Gaetz truth serum, what do you support? What do you want to see government do? I really genuinely don't think he could answer you, because he doesn't want to see government do anything. The only thing he really wants to do with government is keep his own seat. Because House members are paid pretty damn well. They get free health care, they get housing, they get free travel, they get free mail. They get a lot of perks. And I'm not saying that those perks aren't even necessary. They are. Government should be paying for their travel back and forth to their districts, or else who the hell would want to serve? It's already bad enough that the overwhelming percentage of people in Congress are already millionaires when they get there. And if they're not when they get there, they become them pretty damn quick. And that's both parties. We do have a ruling class in this country. You now need to be of a certain economic standard to even run for these offices, let alone hold them. Here in Pennsylvania, and I realize I'm talking to people all over the world, and I'm so deeply honored to be able to do it. More people, it seems, every month. But there are still states left across the country that have primary elections coming up. These elections are important. Tuesday, April 23rd, is the primary here in Pennsylvania. If you have a mail-in ballot in your possession, do not mail it. Take it to a drop box. Postal Service will not get it where it needs to be in time. Period. Find a drop box and take it there. If you're going to vote in person, God bless you. Please do it. I will be going to vote in person because I quite literally forgot to apply for a mail-in ballot. So I'm going to go vote in person. It's great to have choices. It's the American way, isn't it? Choice. Unless you're a woman and pregnant, then you're not allowed to have choice in this country anymore. Because it was a really great wedge issue for billionaires to make you forget how they're stealing everything from you. Next week on the program, scheduled, is Liz Mkhitaryan, founder of Stop Moms for Liberty. She's been on the program, I believe, twice. We are hoping to find a board member from Central Bucks to talk about how their board went from a mom's board to a Democratic board. And I mean small d Democratic, even though capital D Democrats control the board, but now back to an actual small d Democratic board, one that actually listens to people and functions as a governing body. We're also hoping to find a board member from Nazareth, whose board in 2023 went from small d Democratic to controlled by Moms for Liberty, and to compare and contrast. And Liz is also going to be telling us about the rebranding that the moms have been trying to do, because the Moms for Liberty moniker has been so thoroughly discredited by groups like Stop Moms and PFLAG and many others for what they really are, which is a group backed by billionaires trying to destroy and privatize public education and take all that tax money and stuff it in their pockets, so that there are moms groups across the country who no longer use that name, but are still trying to do the same damn thing. That's our plan. That's what that is what we currently have scheduled for next week, the 28th. May 5th, I have ceremonies at our church. I don't know if we're going to be with you quite yet. The 12th is Mother's Day. We usually are not with you on Mother's Day. We would be back for a week, then it would be Memorial Day, and then we're not with you for Memorial Day. So May might be a very, very choppy month. We might literally only be with you twice, during the month of May. Let me look at a calendar very quick. Yeah, the 5th is church, 12th is Mother's Day, the 19th is fine. The weekend of the 26th is Memorial Day. So I take that. Is it? Yeah, it is. The weekend of the 27th is Memorial Day. So May we might literally only be with you one time in May. I'm not 100% sure how we're going to swing that yet. And then boom, we're into June. This year is flying by. It really is flying by. It's hard to imagine how quickly this has gone. We are on the back half of April already. It is amazing. There are only 9 days left in April. It is stunning. It really is amazing. So again, if you are in Pennsylvania, this only is for Pennsylvania. I do not know what other primaries take place on Tuesday throughout the country. But if you are in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, primary day is the end of the primary election cycle, which is the right way to talk about it, is Tuesday. If you have a mail-in ballot, take it to a drop box. It must by law be in the hands of your county election committee, election board, Bureau of Elections, however you want to say it, Department of Elections, by 8 p.m. on the 23rd. If you are not in Pennsylvania and around the country, if you had your primaries already, then you're kind of a little bit in cruise mode until we approach November. If you still have primaries coming up in your state, you're probably in the midst of the campaign, might already be wearing on you. Don't let it wear on you. It's entirely too important. You might think to yourself, it's really the general election that's important. That's the one we have to vote in. Your participation in the general election is directly tied to your participation in the primary election. If there are multiple people running for a certain office in your community, county, state, or for federal office, there's a Republican primary for the U.S. House in our congressional district here. I'm pointing over here like you know what I'm pointing at. Republicans will be juiced up and taking part in that. And if the candidate of their choice becomes the nominee, it will directly affect the number of people that turn out in November. Primaries are extremely important. And I hope for my friends and everybody listening who might be here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and if you haven't had your state primary yet, please go and vote. Never, never, never let them take your vote from you. Use it every chance you get. Use your vote. And for here in Pennsylvania, that would be this Tuesday. And I know California's primary is usually later into the summer. I think it's in June. New Jersey usually comes after us locally. I'm not sure New York had theirs quite yet. Just go and vote. I'm telling you, people who take part in the primary in much higher percentages will take part in the general. So go and vote. Have your voice be heard. 10 minutes left in the program. George, anything that you wanted to talk about or that we forgot, or just generally speaking, just any of that you are thinking of? I want to get back to the Facebook group to see what other articles.
In a word, no. Sorry.
Well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you care to elaborate on that?
No.
Okay.
No, sorry.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Leave him. He's on a roll. What did I want to? I do want to bring this up really quickly. I posted this actually just about 12 hours ago. A friend of the show, guest of the show, Amanda Waldman, is running for the United States House of Representatives against Dan Mueser. That is a House district here in Pennsylvania. So if you're from other places of the country, I know this might bore you just a sec, but stick with me. Dan Mueser represents a district with the highest concentration of Ukrainian Americans in the country. And he voted present on the Ukrainian aid package yesterday. So what does that mean? It's kind of like a punt. It's kind of like, I'm not saying yes, but I'm not saying no. So that when he goes back to the district, which he doesn't do much, and he certainly doesn't talk to people very much, like most modern Republicans, he doesn't do town halls, he doesn't take questions, he doesn't, that kind of thing. He can tell his constituents, I didn't vote no on it. And it's true. They didn't vote yes for it either. The Ukrainians are in desperate need of this aid. I have told you on this program before, I wish there were no active shooting wars anywhere on this planet. And you can't really be a person of faith and not hope for complete peace throughout the planet. I wish there were no shooting wars anywhere on this planet right now. But there is a full-scale European ground war happening right now, and it's been happening for 2 years, the first one since World War II. The Russians do not just want to conquer Ukraine, they want to erase it. Putin doesn't even think Ukraine is a country. He thinks it's a province of Russia. And he will not stop there. Because he said it. And people in his administration have said it. That when they conquer Ukraine, which of course is their belief, that's just the first step. The Baltics are next, then Moldova, then Poland. So finally, Congress came to an agreement and passed I believe it's a $93 billion aid package that includes $61 billion for the Ukraine and monies for both Israel and Taiwan. proof that there might just yet still be some sane Republicans left. But still, over 100 Republicans voted against it. Because they, having been the beneficiary of laundered Russian money, also happen to suddenly believe that Ukraine's not a country. And don't let them use the old line on you that we should be spending this money to support Americans. We have homeless vets and we're sending Ukraine 61 billion, except that when they want to appropriate money for homeless vets, you vote against that too. So really, you don't give a shit about the homeless vets either. You just don't want any money spent, except for the military industrial complex and the billionaires that own it. We're in a very, very frightening state in this country. And this is at least the third time that I'm going to play on this theme. Will November 5th be just the next in a series of elections, or will it be our last? Will we, Democrats, independents, non-affiliated, Republicans, we the 99%, the economic 99%, will we vote in our collective self-interest, or will this country complete its slide into oligarchical fascism, where a tiny, the top 0.001%, the single handful of richest people among us, run and own everything. We get told every election this is the most important election in our history. Well, guess what? November 5th is as well. But it's not just the most important. Will it be the next election, or will it be the last election? Because that really is the choice that we have in front of us. This election is, in my mind, is way beyond re-electing President Biden or reinstalling the ex-President Trump. It's about, and every election is about the future of the country. This one is about the existence of the country. Will we continue to be one United States, or will we splinter? Will this be the next election or the last election? It is that dire. It is that important. So the 23rd, of course, is primary election day here in Pennsylvania. I may not know, and I don't know, when your closest primary election date is, or if it's already passed. But if it is still coming up, please take part in it. And of course, the general election is November 5th nationally. The entire House of Representatives, 27 members of the Senate, I believe. It's not the full third like it's supposed to be. I think it's like 27. And of course, the presidency. And then, of course, countless state legislators, state senators, state reps, mayors, council people all across the country. Just vote. Just vote. Literally 1 minute left. The Villain's View follows us immediately on Hot 101 and that other side of information. We are scheduled to be back with you next week with Liz Mkhitaryan, founder of Stop Moms for Liberty. That would be the 28th, 21 and 7 is 28. Sunday, the 28th from 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The Kennedy Effect returns live to you. For everyone at TCP, Marquise, Whitney, Taekwon, Andrew, for everybody at Hot 101, including the big boss, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, and all the talented DJs and staff at hot101.net. For executive associate technical producer, I keep adding things every week, George Dare, for his wife and my dear friend Lynn, for Kristen, for Daisy the dog, Guy the cat, for April Riddick, who inflicted this program upon you. And of course, me, I'm Jeff Kennedy. We will see you next week. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other. The Villain's View starts right now.